Okay, welcome everybody to today's Sutta class. In the Sutta classes we discuss the words of the Buddha as found in the early Buddhist texts. Today I will discuss a sutta called the Cook. But before we discuss that sutta, I want to do something a little bit different and start with 10 minutes of guided meditation. So please follow along with me if you would like. Also for people online, please follow along with the meditation as well. Don't skip ahead, because what I will guide you is related to that sutta, and you'll be able to understand the sutta better if I guide you through meditation first. Just waiting for a moment for people here to close the door and sit down. Okay, so just a brief guided meditation. When you sit down to meditate or walk meditation, don't assume already that you know what you are going to do in this meditation. Instead, be reactive to the way your body and mind are right now. So to start this brief meditation, just check in with your body. Notice what your body is like. And ask yourself if there is anything you can do to make this body more at ease, more comfortable. If you need to move any of your legs, straighten your back maybe, or just send kindness to the body. You have to figure this out for yourself. How can you make your body more peaceful and calm? Perhaps with each out-breath you just relax. That feels like the right thing for me to do at this time. Relaxing with every out-breath. Just relaxing the body a little bit deeper. But for you it might be something different that you need to do to make your body more at ease. This is just a brief meditation, just to get a flavor of what I'm going to talk about. So I'm rushing it a bit, but apply the same attitude to your mind as well. Have an open look at your mind. See what it is like. Is it restless? Is it maybe sleepy? Or is it maybe annoyed, ill will? or maybe a bit sad. Maybe you just don't know what's going on in your mind. And then ask yourself a similar question as with the body. How can I make the mind more comfortable, more at ease, more bright? Is this a good time to focus on your breath, maybe? Or is it a good time to develop loving kindness? Is it maybe a good time to reflect upon impermanence? I cannot tell, because you can tell, because you know your mind. Sometimes it takes a while to tune in with the mind, to see what's going on. So again, I'm doing this maybe a bit quickly today. Usually you might take more time for this. But once you figure out what's going on in the mind, once you have a decent idea of what to do to make the mind more peaceful and calm and happy, then try it out if that thing works. For me, I realized that today it's quite simple. I just need to be in the present moment and just be here. Because my mind is a tiny bit restless. Just sit here listening to the sound of the birds and the rain. That's what I need right now. But you might need something different. Sometimes you might have to try a little bit. Is it a good time to practice loving kindness? Maybe just try a little bit of loving kindness and see if it helps. Or maybe it's a good time to focus on your breath, or on the present moment, or any of these other ways to meditate. And as you apply this, whatever method you think is suitable, from time to time ask yourself, is it working? am I finding more peace, more happiness, more contentment? In other words, is my meditation moving in the right direction? Is my mind becoming more bright, more aware? It might take longer than 10 minutes usually, but maybe you already get a little taste of whether this technique you chose is working or not. Okay, that was short guided meditation. I'll ring the bell 3 times now. Okay, that was just a little bit of an idea of what I'm going to talk about, is to use feedback in your meditation. And by feedback I mean be reactive to the contents of your mind, because it's not always that every time we meditate we do the same thing. Well, you might, but you will find that if you always do the very same thing, you meditate, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it might even work, have opposite effects. You do maybe your mindfulness of breathing, maybe that's what you always do, and sometimes you get happy and bright, but sometimes you just fall asleep from mindfulness of breathing. And maybe during those times, it's not the right time to do mindfulness of breathing. And the Buddha talked about this in a sutta called the Cook, and that is the sutta we will be discussing today. It is Samyutta Nikaya 47.8, and here you see the Swedish chef from the Muppets. do you know the Swedish chef? He's like, and he is a very bad cook. I remember one of the episodes where he gonna make chocolate mousse, and then he gets a jar of chocolate, and then he gets a mousse, like and he puts the mousse on the mousse on the dee. So that's not the way to make chocolate mousse. And the Buddha will talk about a sutta where he talks about a bad cook and a good cook, and compares that to a meditator. You can find this sutta, my translation of it, of actually an extract of it. I did not translate the entire sutta. I left out the introduction just for sake of brevity. You can find that at the website that is on the screen, but I will also show it on the screen, of course, but this is for people who might want to read it later, which is suttas.github.io/SN47.8, Samyutta Nikaya 47.8. Samyutta Nikaya 47 is a collection of texts in the Samyutta Nikaya, which is all about satipatthana, the establishing mindfulness, or however you would like to translate that. I'll get back to that translation as well, because this text also gives you an idea what the word satipatthana means. I would like to just read out my translation of this text, or of this extract in full, and then afterwards I'll discuss it. Because sometimes I find if you stop and go all the time, sometimes you lose track a little bit. It's not a very long sutta, so I'll just read it out, and then afterwards I'll go through it and add some more details as well. Because I think if I just read out the sutta, you already get a very good idea of what it is about. I do not need to explain too much. Sometimes we give these sutta classes and I think, why not just read the suttas as they are? The Buddha explained it perfectly well. Why do we need to add stuff as monks? But you'll see what I mean. It's pretty self-explanatory. I also recommend you, if you want, read translations by others, because I have used some different translations of different words, because I sometimes just like to change things around a bit. Not that I disagree with other translations, but sometimes it's helpful to look at certain words in a different light. And I'll talk about that as well after I read out the sutta. So here is the sutta. By the way, translations of others, for example, Venerable Sujata or Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, you can find them on Sutta Central.8, I believe. Mendicant. Imagine a foolish, unskillful and incompetent cook who attends to a king or a king's minister. He serves him various kinds of curries, sour, bitter, hot, sweet, sharp, mild, spicy and bland ones. But he fails to notice the signs of his master. He does not notice which curry pleased his master on a given day, which one he reached for, which one he ate lots of, or which one he praised. That cook would not gain clothes, wages, and gifts. Why? Because that foolish, unskillful, and incompetent cook fails to notice the signs of his master. Likewise, some foolish, unskillful, and incompetent mendicant might meditate on a certain aspect of the body, a certain sensation, a certain state of mind, or a certain phenomenon, motivated, aware, and non-forgetful, free from longing and aversion for worldly things. As he does so, his mind does not unify, his impurities are not abandoned, and he fails to notice the signs of that. That mendicant does not gain blissful abidings in this very life, and he does not gain non-forgetfulness and awareness. Why? Because that foolish, unskillful, and incompetent mendicant fails to notice the signs of his own mind. There's a little typo here that says of his mind. Of his own mind, it should say, of course. Imagine a wise, skillful, and competent cook who attends to a king or a king's minister. He serves him various kinds of curries, sour, bitter, hot, sweet, sharp, mild, spicy, and bland ones. And he does notice the signs of his master. He notices which curry pleased his master on a given day, which one he reached for, which one he ate lots of, or which one he praised. That cook does gain clothes, wages or gifts. Why? Because that wise, skillful, and competent cook notices the signs of his own master. Likewise, some wise, skillful, and competent mendicant might meditate on a certain aspect of the body, a certain sensation, a certain state of mind, or a certain phenomenon, motivated, aware, and non-forgetful, free from longing and aversion for worldly things. As he does so, his mind unifies, his impurities are abandoned, and he notices the signs of that. That mendicant does gain blissful abidings in this very life, and he gains non-forgetfulness and awareness. Why? Because that wise, skillful, and competent mendicant notices the signs of his own mind. So the idea here is, I think, quite clear. It's like when we meditate, we are like the cook. We are serving our minds various dishes. The various dishes stands for the various ways that we might be able to meditate. But for example, mindfulness of the breath, loving kindness, compassion, contemplations of certain aspects of the Dhamma. These are all dishes that we can serve our mind. And our mind is like the master that the cook serves. Our mind is like the king that the cook serves. And if we serve on a given day the wrong dishes to our mind, and we don't notice the signs that the mind doesn't like, in quotation marks, those dishes, then the meditation doesn't work very well. But if we are a wise cook, like a wise meditator, we notice whether our mind becomes more calm and whether it becomes more peaceful through the dishes that we serve it, through the meditation object, you could call it, that we serve it. And if so, if you notice your mind becoming more peaceful, then you're doing the right kind of meditation for that point in time. This is why I gave that guided meditation at the start. The guided meditation, I talked about, look at your mind. What is it like? And what does it need? Yeah? What do you need to, in a sense, feed the mind? Just like a cook feeds the master. And if you are a skillful meditator, you'll learn to respond to your state of mind, to what your mind is like, because your mind is not the same every day. It's not the same every moment, not the same every time you sit down to meditate. I said during the guided meditation, please check if your mind is restless, or maybe it is sleepy, or maybe it's annoyed. There's so many states of mind that there can be. And not every type of meditation is suitable for each state of mind. Just like not every kind of curry is suitable every day for the cook. And it's a very simple idea in a sense, if you get the basics of this. As I said, in a moment I'll maybe go in a little bit more detail about the Pali words and stuff, but that is less interesting than the general idea of this sutta. Yeah? Sometimes monks and nuns, they sort of bicker over how should you translate this word and what exactly does this mean. That is less interesting than the general message of this sutta, which I think is pretty clear. Do you agree that with this, that is pretty clear, the message of this sutta? Yeah, so, but it is such an important thing to remember. And this is actually one of my favorite suttas about meditation. And what is important to remember is to be responsive to your mind, to notice the signs of whether your mind is becoming more peaceful, more bright, more happy. Is it your meditation moving in the right direction, in other words? I see it's so common that people think they have to meditate in a certain way, that they are taught maybe only one way of meditation. In certain traditions you might get only one way of meditation, and sometimes it's like banging your head against the wall. Yeah? You're always trying the same technique and it just doesn't work. And why? Often it's the case that you're serving the wrong dish to your mind. You're doing the wrong type of meditation for that moment. For example, let's say there is a meditation technique. We don't really teach it much here, but it's called like noting whatever happens in your awareness. Are some of you familiar with that? It's like a technique from what they call vipassana. And it's nothing wrong with that technique per se, but when I first got interested in meditation as a young boy, and I did not have any meditation teachers locally, so I looked online how to meditate. Yeah? And that was the first thing I found, noting the thoughts. But my problem with my mind was it was thinking so much already. And so I sit there and then I started noting the thoughts. Okay, so now I have one thought, and then I note the thought, now I have two thoughts. And then I note that I note the thought, now I have three thoughts. So I just got more restless because of that technique. Maybe I was also doing it maybe not completely correctly, but I realized that this is not, for me right now, the right way to meditate. And at that point, it may have been better to just be in the present moment and actually to still the thoughts and to not be so trying to note everything. Yeah, sometimes you just relax and let things happen more naturally. But sometimes it's maybe the opposite. You try to let things be naturally, just don't do anything. That is a common meditation instruction as well. And again, nothing wrong with it, but sometimes you sit there and you think, okay, I'm told to relax, not do anything, and you do that, and you notice you just get more restless, or maybe you fall asleep. And that is also a case that you have to pick up those signs, as it's called here in the sutta, the signs of what your mind is doing. Is it becoming more restless or falling asleep, for example? Then maybe try meditate in a different way. Serve your mind something different. And the Buddha talked about this same principle in many other texts as well. For instance, he said, if you have ill will, then what is the good thing to practice at that moment? If you have ill will, what do you think? Sorry? Yeah, metta, loving kindness. It's sort of a clear answer, but sometimes you might meditate and there's ill will, but you don't notice really the signs in a sense. You just sit there, there's ill will, but you don't really realize that it is ill will, because ill will can be very subtle as well sometimes. It's not just that you have to be super annoyed with, I don't know, a noisy neighbor or whatever. It can be more subtle. You just don't feel it. And something then is also good to practice metta. Notice what is going on in your mind and choose the right dish. And this is using feedback in your meditation. You can use this also in a way that we often teach guided meditations here, is to notice at the end of the meditation, has my meditation worked? Has my mind become more peaceful during this meditation session? Or has it just become more restless, or and so forth? This is doing exactly this. Yeah? That wise, skillful and competent meditator notices the signs of his mind, or of their mind, of her mind. You know what is going on. It is. I'm saying the same thing just in 10 different ways, but this is so important for me in learning how to meditate. Meditation is not just shooting an arrow without looking. Yeah, it's not just like a luck, basically. It is actually aiming for something and shooting the arrow at a target that you know where you want it to go. And it's using feedback. I used the word already, but I used to be a student trained as a mechanical engineer and doing control engineering. So we use the word feedback a lot. But in feedback systems, you have something. An air conditioning is a good example. If an air conditioning doesn't know how hot the room is or how cold the room is, it doesn't know whether it should heat up or cool down. So it measures how hot the room is, and in response to the temperature, it puts out either heat or coolness. You can compare that to meditation. Let's say we can compare heat to restlessness, and too cool is maybe like falling asleep. I'm just making that up as an example, but you get the idea. If you're too restless, you need to cool down a bit. If you're too hot, you need to cool down. If you're too cold, if you're sleepy, you need to heat up a bit. You need to arouse energy a bit. And I want to skip to another sutta before I go into more details of the Cook Sutta, to show that this is not just something I teach, but also something the Buddha talked about. I took some extracts of this sutta. When the mind is sluggish, it is the wrong time to develop the awakening factors of tranquility. Unification of mind is my translation of samadhi. I'll come back to that maybe. And equanimity. Why? Because it's hard to arouse a sluggish mind with these things. When the mind is sluggish or dull, it is the right time to develop awakening factors of investigation, energy, and delight or piti. Why? Because it's easy to arouse a sluggish mind with these things. When the mind, on the other hand, is restless, then it's the wrong time to develop the awakening factors of investigation, energy, and delight. Why? Because it's hard to still a restless mind with these things. Yeah, if your mind is already restless and you start adding even more energy into it, then it becomes even more restless. When the mind is restless, it's the right time to develop the awakening factors of tranquility, unification of mind, and equanimity. Why? Because it's easy to still a restless mind with these things. Imagine your mind being sleepy, and you then practice equanimity. Just sitting there, doing nothing. Yeah, you fall more asleep. That's not what the Buddha is saying here. But if your mind is restless, then it's a good time to practice equanimity. So that is what the Cook Sutta is about as well. Being responsive and using feedback, just like the air conditioning uses feedback. So now, maybe it's a good moment to take one or two questions from here, if there are any, before I go into more detail of the sutta. Eddie, is this a comment or a question? Okay.
Ajahn Sujato, sorry, Ajahn Sunyo, sorry. Thanks for this very wonderful meditation. When you started that, and also the suttas, which you mentioned, they are very deep, and very helpful. I just want to sort of just tell you, as you mention all these things, how I react, okay? Yeah? See whether I'm on the right track or no. When you talk about the meditation, like you normally meditation, you come down first, but you went straight how you feel, and then all these things, good and bad, all this, and then after that, I was, my mind, I was thinking, oh, my feeling, all this, and I was thinking of mindfulness. Yes, I've got this hidden, maybe resentment, which is nothing, very subtle.
Right.
1, 2, 3, okay, or what I think, yeah. And then it comes out, and then the thing is, so you're saying what to do. So I remember Ajahn Brahm talk, let go,
Right.
So I let go. As I let go this thing, this feeling in me like a blissful thing arises,
Right. Okay.
You see what I mean?
So yeah, you use the feedback. Basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's I yeah. And then as you say further, then the latest one is you take on equanimity, means you go further. You have to calm yourself down, which I practice. All this helps me. All this sutta helps me. No.
Okay.
So I can relate
sorry to interrupt you, but what is the question?
The question is, am I on the right track, this thing?
Yes, because you say you felt a bit, what word did you use? Annoyed or something? Yeah. I can't remember which word you used, but you felt a bit like ill will or something and then just let go.
And then let go.
Yeah. No, that's good, exactly. That
let
is
go
responding.
And then there's good feeling, like a little bill, thing, it arises thing, yeah.
That sounds like you are understanding what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, okay?
Okay, good, good.
Thank you.
At the end, I'll do another round for questioning.
Thank you, Ajahn Sunyo. So when meditating, sometimes I find that I'm trying to say do a breath meditation, and then there may be particular mind will do a future proliferation of thinking of different scenarios or something, something I do a lot. So at that point, I often try and bring it back to the breath, but the mind keeps wanting to go back to that future. So at that point, are you saying like it might be good to check my view of why I'm kind of desiring what I desire, or maybe just try to let that future go and just tell myself, let it go, like what Eddie just said? I'm kind of wondering how to work with these different mind states.
Right. Yeah, normally I would answer such a question by giving one specific technique that you might be able to practice, but in context of this class, there's, for example, in the Majjhima Nikaya, there's a sutta calling the stilling of thoughts. And there the Buddha also does not give just one technique to still the thoughts. He gives like 5, and those are even quite general. There are different ways. For example, one of them is to reflect upon the downsides of thinking so much. Is it getting you anywhere? Is it helpful? No, usually not. That's just one of the ways. And to focus on the opposite, on the benefits of peace. And also mindfulness of breathing would actually also be a way to still the thoughts. But it might be, for example, that you're doing the mindfulness of breathing too early in your meditation. Maybe you just need to settle down a bit more, just let go. And the Buddha also I can't remember which one exactly it is, but it's like stilling the willpower in a sense. that's beyond behind the thoughts. So yeah, then you also need to be reactive. Like, is this meditation on the breath the right moment to do that now? Or is my mind still maybe too restless? Do I need to do something else? Sometimes even just contemplating the thoughts can reduce the thoughts. And so yeah, you use that same kind of feedback. And it's like meditation is sometimes a bit like a creative thing. You just test out, does this work today? And does it not work? And you, over time, over the years, you become very familiar with your mind. You see, oh, I've got these kind of thoughts today. Okay, not the right time to do meditation on the breath yet. Maybe just be in the present moment or do loving kindness or whatever. And that way you learn and you become more skilled. Meditation is a skill. Like the word skillfulness is one we often use. And yeah, you become better at it, just like you become better at any skill. I have to add, though, that this goes for everybody, that when you use this kind of feedback, don't be too quick to judge. As I said before, 10 minutes meditation is maybe a bit too brief, but I wanted to introduce the concepts anyway. So maybe you do mindfulness of breathing, and after 2 minutes you decide, this isn't working. Yeah, that's too early to judge, of course. But even maybe 10 minutes might be too early, 15 minutes might be too early, 30 minutes sometimes. Yeah, so don't be all... I talked today about being responsive to your mind and using feedback, but don't turn that into too much of a control exercise, because that is also something which can itself be a hindrance, trying to control too much, trying to use too much direct feedback. And that is why we often, especially Ajahn Brahm, teaches especially against that specific hindrance, because we can be so controlling over our mind. Yeah? But the opposite can also be true, that we just let go too much and don't use any feedback at all. So you have to balance these things as well. Hope that answers your question generally. Yeah? Okay, as I said, I'll take some more questions later. Also, people online, please send in relevant questions to this sutta as well. Now I would like to dive in a little bit more some of the technical Pali aspects of the sutta, and maybe also some more general things as well. To do so, I'll just focus on the second part of the sutta, of the skillful cook. I don't need to go through the entire thing of the unskillful cook again, just the skillful cook only. So I added some of the Pali terms and so forth to just explain a little bit, especially what Satipatthana is about. Sorry, I have to go one slide back. Imagine a wise and skillful and competent cook. The word skillful is kusalayu. It's also translated as wholesome. Now the interesting thing here is I've just compared meditation to a skill, just like any skill in life. Cooking is a skill. Yeah, and it's interesting that the very same word for skillful, kusala, is here used for a very worldly skill, for cooking. Yeah, it doesn't mean in this context that a skillful cook is like a wholesome cook. That's not what it means, the word kusala, in this context. Like wholesome as in virtuous or something. It means a cook who is a good cook, good at his craft or her craft. Yeah? So the word kusala also has this connotation of very worldly skillfulness. Yeah? Like it also talks about skillful carpenters in the suttas, for example. So they are good carpenters. So that just gives you a taste of what the word kusala also is about and why people translate it as skillful sometimes. So just like you can be skillful at a craft like cooking or carpentry, you can be skillful at meditation. It is something you learn over time. Yeah? You can become better at. And that is also how you can use feedback in the long term. A cook doesn't learn how to cook in one day or in 1 hour or in one session. It takes many years to become better as a cook. And same with meditation. It takes many years for most people to become better at meditation. And also judge your meditation, like in a positive way, look at your meditation over the years. Is it going in the right direction? Is it becoming more easy to relax? And that is so important to do, because otherwise, as I said before, you might be banging your head against the wall for many years and not get further and further. Of course, your progress might be slow. Meditation is not something where every day you have a new breakthrough or something like that. But just over the years, over the decades, are you becoming more skillful at this? Just like the skillful cook. Now, so the word skillful is used also in a worldly context. Now we also have the word upatthana used in a more worldly context. By worldly, I mean non-meditative. Imagine a wise, skillful, and competent cook who attends to a king or a king's minister, upatthana. So I said before, this sutta comes from Samyutta Nikaya 47, which is the collection of discourses on satipatthana. And that satipatthana is actually a compound word of sati, which is usually translated as mindfulness. I translated it a little bit differently. I'll come back to that. Sati and upatthana, satipatthana. Sati upatthana is the word. Now, people argue over what does upatthana exactly mean and so forth. But here, in suttas like this, you get a sense of what it means in a different context than meditation. A cook attends to a king, and they take care of that king by serving the right dishes. So sati upatthana is like taking care or attending to your mind with the right meditation objects. And Venerable Dhammaloka here for this weekend is what we call my upatak. That's my attendant. That's the same word. Upatak is a short form of the Pali word upataka, which is an attendant. It's from the word upatthana, same word. So the word has a very close connotation to caring and kindness and being ready to help somebody. So to attend with mindfulness is how I like to think about the word satipatthana. To attend, because to attend has this idea of caring, kindness, and also wisdom, like the wise cook. It's very helpful to think about upatthana, sati upatthana in that way, because it brings it back to kindness as well, and not so much intellect, but it comes from feeling. And this meditation feedback that I've been talking about is also often something that is more like a feely thing instead of like an intellectual matter. And how do I feel? It's not something you can really answer analytically often. You just know how you feel, and sometimes you can't even find the right words for it. But you know. So this is like when you attend to your mind, it means you know how your mind is like and what to serve it. So it's just, as I said, this is more like the technical parts of these words. So if they're not familiar to some of you, then these words might be new to you, but I know many of you have heard these words before, and I hope it's helpful to get a little bit of this different flavor of these words. Because often in these discussions things can get very technical, but if you see these worldly contexts, you see how words are also used in a very non-technical way, and it helps you understand what it is about. He, that cook, serves him, the king, various kinds of curries: sour, bitter, hot, sweet, sharp, mild, spicy, and bland ones. This stands for all the different kinds of meditations. I hope your meditation is not sour or bitter. You get the idea. Just the various curries stands for mindfulness of breathing, loving kindness, and so forth. Traditionally, the commentaries say there's 40 objects of meditation, but even that is just a sort of a number that they just sort of counted the suttas. But you can meditate in so many ways. You can even find your own creative ways that are sometimes not in the suttas also. And we teach those from time to time as well. So all these ways of meditation are like different dishes that you can serve. And what you then do, if you're a wise cook, you he does notice the signs of his master. So he notices whether today maybe, let's say, the spicy curry is right for the mind. Yeah, maybe it's a right time to contemplate suffering. That's spicy. Sometimes you need to do that to make the mind more peaceful, actually, as well. It's also a way to meditate. So, and then, if that is the day that the king has a day that he likes spicy curry, then you serve more of that curry. And if your mind is right for contemplating suffering, you serve more of that contemplation. Now, the words for signs here is the word nimitta. Nimitta, as I put it in plural. And this is not here used in the sense that we often use the word nimitta nowadays as meaning these reflections in the mind which happen when the mind becomes very peaceful. In this context, it's just used to mean sign in general. And the signs of the master, the king here in this case, would be, for example, the king goes, nice curry. That is a sign of the king liking that curry today. And if he is like, and it pushes it away, that's also a sign. So again, the word nimitta is often discussed, what does it mean? But here again, you get an idea of how it's used in a daily context and why we translate it often as sign. So in some, the word nimitta is used in different ways throughout the suttas. It doesn't really often mean how we use it nowadays, like those lights in the mind, for example. Those are described in the suttas, but in different words usually. But you get an idea of the word nimitta here anyway. He notices which curry pleased his master on a given day, which one he reached for, which one he ate lots of which one he praised. Yeah, you notice what your mind is doing in response to your chosen object of meditation. That cook does gain clothes, wages, or gift. Why? Because that wise, skillful, and competent cook notices the signs of his own master. I've explained before what that means. Likewise, some skillful, kusala again, and competent mendicant, the mendicant is bhikkhu, might meditate on. And these are the four, what we call the four satipatthanas. The four satipatthanas are not just the objects of meditation. In all translations, you will find satipatthana translated as foundation of mindfulness. But the four satipatthanas are really like ways to meditate. And as I said before, the word upatthana means to attend. So already in the word upatthana, attending, there is this way that you meditate, right? You attend in a kind way. And here below it says also motivated and aware. That is also part of the satipatthana, and free from longing and aversion for worldly things is also part of satipatthana. If you just meditate on a certain aspect of the body, but you're not motivated, you're not aware, and you have a lot of longing and aversion, then that is not satipatthana, even though you have one of these objects. People are taking photos of the slides. Maybe I should put them online somewhere as well. You can look at the YouTube as well. So these four satipatthanas, let's say, four ways of attending with mindfulness, is how I like to think about it, are four ways, very broad, general ways to meditate. And you might meditate on is how I translate anupassi, which means, anupassi literally means to look at, to look closely at. Passi means to look, and anu means to look closely. So to meditate on something, it's like you look at it, yeah? You observe it in a sense. So you meditate on, and now we come into some more territory where people argue a lot about how to translate certain phrases. So again, this is all technical stuff. I already explained the most important stuff, how to read the sutta in general, to get the broad idea. And now these specific details are just like less important, but can still be very helpful as well to understand, to know what the sutta is about. Because again, let me just explain it this way. You might meditate on a certain aspect of the body, a certain sensation, a certain state of mind, or a certain phenomenon. Now, In my translation, which is very similar to the one used by Venerable Sujato, you see translates a certain aspect of the body, translate kaye kayanupassi. And before I get into the technical grammatical details, when you translate this as a certain aspect of the body, does this give you? It gives you an idea of choice. Yeah, there's different aspects to the body. If you read the longer discourses on Satipatthana, like the Satipatthana Suttas, then you can meditate on the body in various ways. You can, for example, contemplate the body's nature to die, or you can contemplate the body parts, or you can contemplate that the body is made of different elements, or you can focus on the breath. That is also a way to meditate on a certain aspect of the body, because the breath is an aspect of the body. The body's nature to die is an aspect of the body. The body's, all the different organs are aspects of the body. So that is what kaye kayanupassi means, that you choose a certain aspect of the body. And that is how Venerable Sujato explains it as well. And I say people argue over this because people sometimes translate it as something like the body as the body. You contemplate the body as the body. But I don't think that's a very good translation, because it's too much thinking about this as if it's an insight-only practice, like you meditate the body as it is sometimes how they interpret it. But that's not what it is about. For example, when you focus on the breath, you're not really focusing on the body as it is. It doesn't really make contextual sense. Kaye kayanupassi, the word kaye is what we call, this is for the Pali scholars among you, is a locative case. And locative can mean something like among. So something among the body, or something quote unquote in the body, but it doesn't mean literally in the body, but a certain aspect that is part of your body. Let's think about it that way. Same with a certain sensation. Vedanasu vedananupassi viharati. Atapi sampajano and so forth. Vedanasu vedananupassi literally means meditate on anupassi, a certain feeling or sensation, vedana, among sensations, vedanasu. And vedanasu is in the plural. And you cannot really meditate on multiple sensations at the same time. The idea is that you pick a certain vedana among all vedanas. Vedanasu is a plural, yeah? So in the Satipatthana Sutta, this explains, for example, you know whether you're feeling a physical sensation or a mental sensation. You're feeling pleasant or unpleasant, and you know it. So that is what it means. You focus on a certain sensation. And here you can also include, for example, the sensations of loving kindness. And that might also fall under a certain state of mind. The next Satipatthana, those overlap a little bit. And what I'm saying is these 4 Satipatthanas are just very broad categories in which we can put all the ways of meditating under these 4 banners. Yeah? A certain state of mind, chitte chittanupassi. A certain phenomenon, that's the word dhamma, dhammesu dhammanupassi. Dhammesu, it should say. I make these slides usually just a day or so before, so that's why there's all these typos here. But Dhammese should be Dhammesu, that's just a technicality. It's a certain phenomenon, for example, suffering as a phenomenon you can meditate on. Or the hindrances also fall under here. Now, let me finish with this final phrase. Motivated, aware, and motivated is atapi. I think motivated is quite a nice translation because it means a lot in English. Sometimes it's translated like ardent, but that's a little bit of an old-fashioned word to me anyway, ardent, but that's maybe too literal a little bit as well. But it means you're interested. and you want to do this practice. Yeah, you're motivated. You're keen, is how it's also translated. Atapi is the word. Aware, that is sampajana. Aware has different connotation. Just means you're aware of what's going on. Like you're bright, your mind is bright. You know what's going on. But in some contexts, it also has the sense of awareness in the sense that you know what to do. Yeah? So it's this feedback idea again as well in this context. And now here I use a very non-standard translation. Non-forgetful is actually my translation for the word sati. So I talked about sati upatana, it's usually translated sati as mindfulness. I don't really disagree with that translation, but sometimes I want to highlight different aspects of words in my translation, just to give it a new flavor. Because the word sati in Pali literally means, some of you might know, means memory. Or maybe you didn't know. No, this is interesting, because in some of the suttas the Buddha explains, if you practice the awakening factor, the sambojjhanga of sati, one way to do it is to remember the Buddha's teachings and apply them to the present moment. That's not how we usually think of mindfulness, is it? Remembering things from the past. People explain mindfulness as non-judgmental in the present, just let whatever come in the present, let it just happen. But mindfulness in the Buddha's teachings is much more having to do with, again, this feedback idea. And also it's not just about present moment awareness. It's also mindfulness of death, for example. But death is not a present moment thing. Yeah? Marana sati. Marana means death, and sati means, well, non-forgetfulness or mindfulness. But it means, in many contexts, not just aware of what's going on, but can also mean something like not forgetting your object of meditation, to keep something in mind. And you can, for example, keep the contemplation of death in mind. It means like you don't forget it. Or you keep your breath in mind when you focus on the breath with anapanasati. Yeah? Again, the word sati there. It means to keep something in mind, to not forget it. And this is also, like you, in context of this sutta, it is about knowing which instructions of the Buddha are relevant to your state of mind. I gave the little sutta before about when your mind is dull, don't do this but do that, and then when it's restless, don't do that but do this. Yeah, that if you are meditating and you remember those kind of instructions, you don't have to remember them literally, of course, but just through experience, you know, oh yeah, this is what I should do now, this is what I shouldn't do. And that is also an aspect of what we call mindfulness. That's why I like to think of it about non-forgetting, because you don't forget the instructions, you don't forget your past experiences in meditation. Keeping your precepts is also part of mindfulness in the suttas. You don't forget your precepts. You keep them in mind, as it were. So this is another way to think about the word sati, mindfulness. And I know my translation, non-forgetful, is maybe a little bit artificial, especially when you translate it as non-forgetfulness. But I do that on purpose just to give a different flavor, because the word mindfulness has these connotations in many secular circles especially, of being only aware of the present moment. But that's not what it's only about. That is included as well in sati. And this is not just me just saying this about the word sati. Venerable Ajahn Brahm has explained similar ideas, Venerable Sujato, Ajahn Brahmali. And actually almost all scholars of the early texts agree upon this. Yeah. Upon this, Venerable Thanissaro has also written about this as well, that mindfulness is not just present moment awareness, but can be broader than that. And in context of this sutta, that is an important word to highlight, because this is again about sati patana, attending upatana with non-forgetfulness. You can think about it like that. So it's sometimes just changing the word gives you a whole different way of looking at meditation. Attending to your mind with non-forgetfulness, attending without forgetting what you're doing and what ways you use to meditate. And then the sutta concludes, free from longing and aversion for worldly things. This means you have reduced the coarsest hindrances of the mind already through keeping your precepts and your generosity, and also very important, sense restraint. And this phrase, Venerable bija domanassa, is very often found in context of sense restraint as well. So that's what it actually points to. Basically, it points to some of the right effort that precedes right mindfulness or right non-forgetfulness in the Noble Eightfold Path. But that would be a subject of another talk. For now, I hope you get the general idea of this sutta, so that you will not meditate like this guy over here. How do I go back? Like this guy, yeah? And make a whole mess of your kitchen, of your mind. Instead, you meditate like a good chef who knows what to do. Okay, thank you for your attention. And sadhu to the Buddha for these lovely teachings. And if there is any more questions, maybe I'll do a few from online first, and then I'll take some more from here. Just see what we have. Okay, there's quite a few here. By the way, usually when I start the questions and answers at the end, I always say a few like, you've learned enough for today, then feel free to leave. Sometimes it's just too much information, or the questions might not be relevant to you, and I don't mind if you feel like that, want to go. From Wolfram, what is the right reaction to not be tormented anymore by unpleasant memories, people, situations, if they keep popping up out of nowhere during meditation, causing anger and stopping peace? How can I protect myself? What can I do to stop? So Wolfram is basically asking, what is the right response, if you want to meditate in this kind of feedback kind of way, to unpleasant memories that pop up in your meditation? And you say, causing anger and stopping peace. Well, in context of how I have been talking today, you have to look upon your mind and see what is the reason for these thoughts. And can you address that underlying reasons? You say they pop up out of nowhere, but thoughts and memories don't pop up out of nowhere. There is underlying causes for those thoughts, and there will be some hindrances still present in your mind. If you say these thoughts cause anger, it might actually be the opposite. Maybe you had ill will already, and that triggered the thoughts. And because of that, you get even more anger. So if that is the case, you need to maybe practice with a more kind attitude. So then you use the feedback, oh, there's ill will here. Let me use kindness instead. Could also be that there's restlessness, and then you use calming practices. So there's not one answer what you can do to stop that. There's multiple ways, and you experiment a little bit, see what helps. Yeah. And also do not get annoyed when things don't work. Sometimes we think, yeah, I've been taught all these meditation techniques, and still unpleasant memories keep popping up, and then you get annoyed with that as well. So you add even more annoyance. Then you need to realize that as well, what's going on. From Nikki, thank you, Ajahn. I have recently been diagnosed with lung cancer. I'm sorry for you. I can feel the tumor and it's painful. Sometimes I want to serve my mind breath, sometimes a mantra, sometimes I go into the pain. Could you give me any guidance? So yeah, this is another question very relevant to today, because there's different kinds of dishes you might serve to your mind. Yeah, serve the mind the breath, sometimes a mantra, sometimes just focus on the pain. And you're basically asking, what should I do? Give me any guidance. And I think the answer is again the same. Try out what you feel you might like to do at that point. Yeah, maybe you focus on the breath and see, does that make me more peaceful, more kind, and so forth? If not, maybe that wasn't the right object of meditation, yeah? Because if you have lung cancer, I can imagine that sometimes mindfulness of the breath is maybe not the best object of meditation for that moment in time. Because your breath might not be peaceful, or you might have a bad attitude towards your mind, or towards your breath. So you can try out a little bit. And just like the chef notices the signs of their master only after the master has started their lunch, only afterward, or their meal, only afterwards they see, oh, this is the dishes they like, this is the dishes they don't like. Only after serving them they know. So sometimes you serve the dishes and then, oh, okay, these weren't the right dishes, let me cook something else. Yeah, so you use feedback. You can try all three and see which is helpful at that point in time. I like to give students a lot of freedom in the way they meditate. Even when I teach retreats, do guided meditations, I often start by saying, I'm going to guide meditation now, but if you don't feel like following along, then do your own thing. Because I realize from my own experience that you have to be wise about this. From Shobi, when trying to cultivate loving kindness in meditation, I don't feel bright or delight, it feels quite grim. Any advice? Yeah, maybe you're trying too much. Trying to cultivate loving kindness. And this also comes back to maybe, this is, by the way, and as a side note, when answering questions about people's meditation, it's I'm never 100% sure whether I'm giving the right answer. Because I can't really, from one sentence, know what is going on in your mind. And even if you would have a long time to explain it, and still, I can't be in your mind, because you are in your mind. And you know much better than me what's going on. And that's why I like suttas like this. They tell you that you are the chef, you are responsible for your mind. And I am only here just to give you some general ideas, maybe to test. But so that's, I say that because something else that might be going on, I'm not sure, is that you just give it some more time. When I taught a retreat on loving kindness, just a weekend retreat, maybe a year ago or so, I started with a little analogy for people who've been trying meditating on loving kindness. Imagine you're sitting in a cold, cold room. And the room temperature is minus 20 degrees Celsius, very cold. And in front of you, there is a huge block of ice. The ice represents your heart. You've got a cold heart. Your job in this meditation retreat on loving kindness is to melt the block of ice. And I will give you instructions to warm up the room. And it's like warming up the room. You turn on the heater in the room. You crank up the heater. And then your job is to melt the block of ice using the heat of loving kindness. You turn on the heater and it goes from minus 20 to minus 19, minus 18, minus 15. And the block of ice is still not melting. This is not working, this heater, you think. It goes to minus 10, minus 5. Then you give up. These meditation instructions on loving kindness, they are useless. They can't melt my heart. But the idea, of course, is keep the heater on, keep going. And at some point, you'll reach a tipping point. And then the block of ice starts melting when you reach like 1 degree or something. Yeah? Then you keep heating it up even more and it starts melting very quickly. And that is maybe when you try loving kindness and you don't feel bright and it still feels grim, it's maybe because you're still in the negative temperature zones. Maybe you've heated up from minus 20 to minus 15 and you think it's not working, but just keep going, keep practicing. That is also why I said don't judge too quickly. Use feedback, but don't be too quick to judge. And maybe look upon my loving kindness retreat as well, because I gave lots of different ways to practice loving kindness. And some ways might be more helpful for you than others. You can just Google it or whatever. Maybe somebody can even link it in the chat still. I'll also do some more questions from here in a moment. We've got time. From Ellen, if you are in doubt which form of meditation is best for you, is it a good idea to have a meditation session where, for example, you are starting with body scan, mindful breathing and metta? So you basically sort of plan it out, is what you're saying. That's what I'm... Noting usually works well for me. I learned it from Yutta Dhammaloka Bhikkhu, also Theravada monk. All apologies to him for spelling his name wrong, which could be Yutta. I think it's without an H, but anyway, that doesn't matter how you spell his name. I have heard of him as well. So the question is, if you are in doubt what way to meditate, what do you do? That is how I read this question in short. Well, if you're in doubt, what do you do? First of all, start by realizing, there's doubt in my mind. Doubt can be also very subtle. Just not really knowing what to do is also can be a form of doubt. You use the word doubt yourself, and doubt itself is one of the 5 hindrances. Yeah? So instead of choosing what form to meditate, try if you can address that doubt itself first. And sometimes it can be addressed in the way that you suggest. Just to pick a meditation way, a meditation object, and just stick with it, and just decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to doubt whether this is right or wrong. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do mindfulness of breath today, or a body scan today. Then at least you put aside that doubt, whether is this right or wrong. At least you've taken care of that hindrance. Another way to deal with doubt is to learn more about the suttas and attend meditation retreats or learn from talks like this. So that is one of the jobs of teachers like me, is to take away some of your doubt about meditation by answering questions like this. And noting, you say, works for you, and I said nothing against it, just at that point in time was not practical for me. I usually don't use it myself. Sometimes actually, when I do use it, I don't note everything that's going on, but I use it very much in context of this, knowing what's going on in your mind. So, for example, I might decide to note which hindrances are present in my mind. I look at my mind and restlessness. I note, it's just restlessness. That way you become familiar with even more subtle forms of restlessness. Or in this case, Ellen, there's doubt. So I just note, this is just doubt. You get familiar with these hindrances that way, by just giving them a name. Okay. So, are there any questions from people here as well? The reason I did the online questions first is because I thought maybe some of your questions will be addressed there as well. This often happens. People have the same questions. Joe.
Thank you, Ajahn Sunyo. More just like an observation. I find that I'm struggling with meditation, which is often usual. I find that there's a role for physical activity too. Like walking meditation often seems to break that pattern of that stalemate. I find I've also found that just by less long sittings, so if I think rather I'm trying to sit for an hour, I might get really, really stale. But if I think, I'll sit for 25 minutes, do some walking meditation, I find when I sit again, there's energy there, and often I'm more able to kind of settle and even kind of suggest to my mind to, if I'm finding that anapanasati boring, for want of a better word, my mind is more malleable to be able to kind of say, right, I'll actually sit with that. Right. It seems to kind of break the that stalemate a bit. That's just observation, the role of...
Right. Yeah, thank you. I love that comment, because it is also using feedback basically. Is this the right time to do sitting meditation or walking meditation? And don't just judge before you even have a look at your body and mind what you're going to do. I've been on retreats as a lay person where they had certain time slots that you had to do sitting meditation and walking, like 45 minutes sitting and 15 walking, 45 sitting and 15 walking. And that you were forced to do it. Everybody followed the same pattern. But I realized that is very unskillful way to teach meditation, because sometimes 45 minutes sitting is too long, sometimes it's also too short, right? And sometimes 15 minutes walking is too long, and sometimes it's too short. Sometimes I've been walking meditation for hours, multiple hours, just walking back and forth, because I realized this is the right thing to do for my mind and body right now. So then you also use feedback. So that's why when you come to meditation retreats in Jhana Grove, we don't have those sorts of schedules. And if there are just maybe suggestions. Not when monks from the BSWA teach anyway. This is also used by other traditions as well. Maybe they do differently. But and when I teach, I just say, decide for yourself whether you want to sit or walk, or maybe sometimes it's not the right time to meditate even. Yeah? Maybe have a cup of tea. Just have a mindful cup of tea. Or maybe you need a nap instead of meditation. Yeah? So I have wasted quite some time when I was more stubborn and foolish in my young years as meditation by being tired and then still trying to meditate. For example, coming out of university late in the afternoon or even evening, and then meditating straight after, or maybe having a meal first, and then you fall asleep. So that is not the right time. Maybe I should have taken a nap first and then meditate. Yeah, and so that is also a good comment. You also use the cook attitude towards that as well. Yes.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, I'll take one more question from here. Yes.
I just wanted to clarify in regards to looking at the aspect of the body. So I just want to clarify how you do that. So when you're meditating, generally we close our eyes and we are looking at the breath, and the breath is always there. Whereas when you're contemplating maybe parts of the 32 parts of the body or something, it's not that you're thinking about the body. Is it more like is it like when you say mindfulness, you're using that word non-forgetting?
Yeah.
So it's like recollecting what the parts are, and then not thinking of yourself as a body, but those parts? Mm-hmm. Is that the...
Yeah, so when it says here, this is what you're referring to. The number one, you meditate on a certain aspect of the body. That it just means you choose a certain meditation subject or object which has to do with the body. So it's a very general instruction, this is, which encompasses all sorts of possible meditations. And most of the meditations on the body actually are done to remove sensual desire. For example, contemplating the body parts is largely if you feel sexual attraction, for example, to people, then you contemplate, oh, these are just bodies made of body parts. So even when monks ordain as a novice, then they are taught some of the parts of the body in their ordination ceremony. Not all of them, but hair of the head, hair of the body, nail, teeth, and skin. Because sensual desire, especially sexual desire, can be very destructive if you live a celibate life.
It's good for vanity as well, because as females, we are very vain, wanting to look in a certain way. So if then you don't think of yourself as beautiful, but like it's the skin, it's the hair.
Right. Yeah, that's another aspect in a way, more subtle aspect maybe of sensual desire. That hindrance of sensual desire is also very broad, can have many kind of attachments, vanity, and so forth. Yeah, so that is one way to practice this satipatthana of kaya anupassi, is to the aspects of the body there means its nature of not being as attractive as we believe it is. It's one way, yeah. But there is, of course, you can also contemplate death, the impermanence of the body, it reduces attachment to human life, for example, and to your possessions as well.
So is it bringing up in your memory? Like you might be, like say I'm on the bus sitting and I'm having time, so you're not then closing your eyes and meditating, but then you're recollecting in your mind thoughts about that this body has 32 parts, and then let's say you're thinking about your skin.
Yeah. The way I usually do it is, first of all, I don't divide it specifically into those traditional 32 parts because they're hard to remember, and it's not really the point that you remember those exact parts. Usually I just scan through my body and imagine what it looks like if you would take it apart. Yeah, if you peel off your skin, what does it look like? There's all this greasy stuff underneath, and if a body, you just take an eye out, an eye itself is not attractive, and you just scan through your body. Or you can imagine your body just being like a skeleton. That's another way. We usually don't really teach these things too often, but they are very useful when you are struggling with sensual desires especially. Yeah, so that's how I do it. I just imagine like I'm sort of mentally sort of dissecting my body, or maybe bodies of other people, generally speaking. Like, it's not like I imagine dissecting it with a knife, but just imagining what all the parts are. Yeah? What does a muscle actually look like? When I was a young boy, at one point they had on the television in the Netherlands this show about this German sort of a doctor artist who, I don't know, what, do you know his name? You're nodding. Yeah. So he makes these sculptures of human bodies. It's like plasticine or something. He gets people to donate their body after they die. And okay, they donate it before they die, but they write down, you can use my body. And then he dissects it and makes like statues out of it. And you can see, for example, the lungs and so forth. And I went once to a show of him as well. But there was this show on the television as well where he does all this dissection live, and to show what a body is like. And I was like a young boy, really interested, but my mother couldn't look at it. I remember she was like, "Oh, look at something else, please." And me and my brother were like, "Oh, this is cool." So that is what you sort of, if you've seen that sort of show, you know what the body is like from the inside, and then you can meditate on a certain aspect of the body is like meditating on those parts, for example.
And does that meditation cause a lower mental state? Like, does it become more depressive, or do you have to be very confident before you approach something like that?
No, this meditation is not very often taught to, there's this idea that it shouldn't be taught to lay people, but that therefore people think maybe that is dangerous or something, but I'm not afraid to teach it. I think it's very useful for lay people as well, things like vanity, or even just to get more familiar with your body as it is. And we often forget that it has all these muscles and veins and nerves. But if you just know a little bit about what it is like, you also get more in tune with your body in a sense as well. It can be very helpful. And your question was, does it cause like sadness, depression? No, it can actually make you feel very peaceful, because it's when you do it properly, it reduces a lot of especially sensual desire. But you have to do it, just to come back to the general message of this talk, you have to do it at the right time. Yeah, when your mind likes that spicy dish of contemplating the body, then it's the right time. And if it doesn't like it, then don't do it. And it might also be more suitable for some people than others, for example, generally speaking. And this is the same with all sorts of meditation. Just to quickly repeat the general point of today. You can try them out, see if they're helpful, and be reactive to your state of mind. Don't drive with your eyes closed. Don't shoot an arrow in the dark. notice what your mind and body are like and see what is appropriate to do. What is the appropriate way to meditate, walking, sitting, or what's the appropriate thing to do. When you do decide to meditate, loving kindness, contemplation of the body, and so forth. And in this way, you'll be more skillful over time, and you'll become like the good cook who knows exactly what dishes to serve. And this way you can become a very efficient meditator. By efficient, I mean you learn very quickly about your mind, what to do, by using this feedback. If you don't use feedback, you don't learn too much, and you might get stuck. So thank you all for your attention. Now we will stop here now, and maybe you can afterwards come and talk to me. And let's pay respects to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavatam Abhivade Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamman Namasam Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangha Namah